Welcome back to another episode of RealWorldTruthMatters. May, in fact, spoiler alert, be the last, but we'll get to that here in a moment. A lot of things happening. A lot of riffraff. I talked over a week ago about. I just gotta point this out at the beginning, okay? And it's not that I want any glorification. I want God to be glorified. I spoke about the Nigerians being slaughtered en masse over a week ago. Check the date on my YouTube. God. Not my last devotional. It was a full devotional Sunday. The video before that, episode 30. I think I spoke about it briefly in 29 also. And just now, yesterday, Fox brought up, the mass slaughter of Christians in Nigeria. Good job. Good job, Fox. What is happening? Like, why do I feel like I'm ahead of the times here? Why do I feel like I am bringing up news that people just totally ignore? And it's critical stuff. Like our other topic tonight is going to be the tree lighting ceremonies and how there's mass shootings happening at these ceremonies. And every year, there's hardly ever any problem. The one that I'm really anticipating, and I'm just going to give a forewarning here. If I lived in New York or was heading to New York to the famous tree lighting ceremony in Times Square, I don't know if I'd want to take part in it. And I wouldn't blame very many people for not. I understand that we're to stand firm on our faith in Christ, but the men that are carrying out these acts, okay, claim that Christ was just an apostle. That's it. That's it. He was not the son of God. They pray to Muhammad and Allah. They Allah snack bar, okay? That's what they do. Give me, whoa, so frustrated, okay? So my first topic is actually about the Amish. So fun facts about the Amish here. I'll give you the actual numbers, and then we'll go a little bit further. Current to date, most of the Amish do live in Pennsylvania, which is where I'm live streaming from. Okay, Pennsylvania. There are currently 400,000 plus Amish citizens. And in 1920, the population of the Amish was 5,000. In roughly a year or two, the population is estimated to be 1 million plus. Now, why do I bring this up? Because each married couple will have 7 to 10 children if the mother can withstand it. And they speak 2 languages. They speak English and they speak Pennsylvania Dutch. It's not Dutch, it's Dutch, and it's German. Just so you know. That's what they're talking. German. But it has a Pennsylvania slang to it. So it's kind of like Russia and Ukraine. Ukrainian language is kind of like Russian, but it's a spin-off. Just like Pennsylvania Deutsch is a spin-off of German. That's a fun fact. So the reason I bring that up is because you can actually commit yourself, even though you weren't born. I can say this. I can say this openly because my mother passed away. God bless her soul. My mother's last name was Miller. It's a very prominent name in the Amish communities. And I'm part Amish. I'm part Chippewa. I'm 3% Chippewa. I'm super proud of that 3%. I'm a bunch of other things, right? Too, because we did the genetic thing. But the whole point is, you can actually join Amish communities. You're normally an outcast for quite a while. They allow you to take part of the community, but until you're baptized into the church, you are not officially an Amish person. So you can they'll help you build your house and everything in their Amish community, so on and so forth. And you can commit to that type of lifestyle, but there are certain uh, expectations of you. Obviously, you're not going to be watching my podcast, right? Um, some are more laxed, where they do allow internet. Some allow uh, websites to advertise their businesses and stuff. Some do have cell phones. Some do have electric in their home. The Mennonites do not. And the Mennonites hold themselves to a higher standard. They believe they're the higher people because they're keeping the old tradition. Sorry about that. Now, those are the ones who will look at you sideways. They don't contact you for rides. It is all done by horse, buggy, plow, you name it. And they're very strict, and they're always wearing black. They're black from head to toe. The only exception is in the Mennonite community when a young lady is to be married or is offered up for marriage, her bonnet would be white. And that's how you know. Also, they paint the doors red or blue or something like that. But it is a fun fact that people in the civilized world can join Amish communities. And you would wonder, why would you want to join an Amish community? Well, in joining an Amish community, you're not paying any tax. You're not doing anything for the state. You're paying everything cash. You have to start your own business, or you have to contribute to the community, right? But here's the side note. That community, once you're baptized in, will also help you if you have medical problems, right? And a lot of people mistakenly think that Amish don't partake in, like, the majority of Amish will go to hospitals, especially pregnant women, so they're well taken care of. But they're paying out of pocket for each one of those doctor's visits, and we know how costly that is because, well, yeah, our stuff is 5 times the amount of our entire military budget right now. So there's that on the Amish. So here's the little updates on the Russia-Ukraine conflicts. And I did see something today that, well, yesterday I saw it, and then Trump is stating that he's very upset that he can't come to an agreement. That's because Donald Putin does not want an agreement. He wants the land, he wants the minerals, he wants the natural gas, he wants the original land of the USSR, and he will stop at nothing. And he continues to send troops to the front line. 700 plus a day are either dying, or they're being unloved, or wounded in a way that they cannot return. And if you go back in my playlist quite a ways back, I talked about watching a sad video of Russian soldiers that were being forced to the front line that were they had their leg casted. They had a completely shattered leg, whether they stepped on a mine or whatever, I don't know, but their legs were in casts, and they were walking on crutches, and they had no weapons, and they were sent out to scout. How effective do you think that is? They're just to draw ammunition and lead. That's it. Well, the Ukrainians stopped shooting them. The problem is that some of these guys ended up having grenades and they would just blow themselves up whenever the Ukrainians walked up to them. They knew what the mission was. It was like the Imperial Japanese in World War II hitting Pearl Harbor. Fun fact there. A lot of people need to remember history. History is important. Okay. The Imperial Japanese fighter pilots that were hitting Pearl Harbor had a famous weapon. And what it was a pistol. And the grip faced forward, the trigger faced forward, but the barrel faced backwards. And once they eyed up their target and they got close to the ship or whatever it was that they were driving the plane into, as if it was a bomb, they would pull that out. They would unalive themselves. So that's basically what these Russians are doing. So right now, oddly enough, 700 plus Russians a day are being unalived or mortally wounded. And the same number, 700 to 800 drones and missiles, about every second or fourth day are being sent from Russia towards Ukraine. Well, here's a little fun fact. Ukraine, just last week, took out Russia's impenetrable oil port. Y'all better believe that. They did. On the Black Sea. They have one more port. Okay. And it's up beside Britain. I don't think Ukraine's going to take that out. I mean, if they do, then they're pulling off a feat that is unthinkable from Ukraine. If they have drones that can fly that far, then nothing in Russia is untouchable. Nothing. That's the only port they have to transport their oil now. Because this other port is, well, still on fire, actually. And they're having trouble containing it. But that's why they load it on the boats, and then they send it down to China for $5 a barrel. Could you imagine? How much do you pay for gas right now? Where are you at in the world? Let me know where you're watching from if you are watching. They got 2 on YouTube. I got a couple on Rumble, and I got a couple on Locals. So there's a few people watching. There's nobody talking. But it's not that Russia is not the smartest bunch. Okay, so this right here is it's not the Russian, mainly it is not the Russian people or the fighters. Okay. It is them being brainwashed. 329. Yeah, 329 a gallon. Imagine buying a whole barrel of it for $5 oil. Okay. So they closed down that port with Ukraine made missiles. And drone boats. The famous sea babies that I spoke about in the past podcasts. So these were Ukraine made missiles. They weren't American. They weren't German. They weren't any of them. Okay. They were just, well, but they were made in Ukraine solely. Russia had now to close the port completely, and about 200,000 barrels of oil per day. 200,000 barrels per day being shipped to China and other countries through the Black Sea is shut down. Shut down. Like alligator Alcatraz. I almost did it again. It's going to be another short. Alligator Alcatraz. Shut down. Okay. Russia with sanctions right, have been selling the barrel at $55 when global markets are at $65 per barrel. And if it's forced to drop any more, it'll be non-profitable for Russians to even extract the oil. Ukraine claimed the attack, they named it Ukrainian sanctions, end quote. Why? Because Donald Trump kept saying, we're going to slap Russia with sanctions. We're going to slap Russia with sanctions. I'll say it again. We're going to wrap, sanctions, sanctions, sanctions. Guess what Donald Trump did? A big fat zero. Now you got to ask yourself, why? Why would he not sanction them? Hmm? Uh-huh. Unbelievable. But Ukraine called the operation Ukrainian sanctions. And they did very well because they shut down 200,000 barrels per day. It's more than sanctions could ever do, if you ask me. And I wrote here because Trump keeps saying he's going to sanction Russia more, but hasn't, And Chuck Holton, shout out to Chuck Holton in my description, at least I hope in my description. There should be a link to Chuck Holton's link tree. He is currently in Odessa. Well, he was in Odessa when I wrote this. Okay. But he's in Ukraine. He's live on the ground. And he goes live when he can. He is using, what's it called? Elon Musk's link thing. But he doesn't stay in one spot very long whenever he's doing it. And some of the videos that Chuck Holton has with some of these logos are just absolutely heartbreaking. I'll tell you one story. This should irritate anybody that has a moral bone in their body. Okay. There were Russian soldiers they were in the park, and these civilians, clearly civilians, there were elders and elderly people and a couple children and stuff because their mom or dad or whatever went off to war or had already been unalived. Well, these elderly people walked out of their little gate from their home, went to the store, came back with grocery bags. They clearly were not a threat to these Russians. Okay. Starlink, that's it. And one of the Russians aimed and shot the grandmother right there. Literally right there. And they laughed about it. And these grandchildren were an absolute. Imagine that. I mean, I don't even know what I don't know if I can put an emotion on it. But think about that. It's a fact. There's video of it. There's video of it, people. Wake up. If you don't think that they're committing heinous, absolute war crimes, you're wrong. And if you think that Ukraine is purposely attacking citizens in Russia whenever they went into Kursk Oblast, then just watch some of the videos from there because they were giving medicine to the Russians. They were giving Russians food that were like, wow, you're helping us more than the Russians have in years. Shocker. Because most of Russia is a third world country. Especially their gulags. They love their gulags. They have lots of them. Okay. Lots of them. But Chuck is currently in Odessa and live ground to air defenses. We're shooting drones his first night in Ukraine, and he has video of it from his balcony of his hotel is here. Okay. The shooting is happening about a block and a half away, and you can see the tracer rounds going. They were shooting at drones. Those 700 to 800 drones that Russia sends every 2 to 4 days. Yeah. Because they're just attacking civilians. They're not attacking anything, actual military. they say, oh, no, the military is operating in this basement or that basement. No, they weren't. No, they weren't, because Chuck actually investigated some of that. And he's live on the ground doing it. And I said, Lord, protect him and his son, which is Nathan. So, Nathan Holton, shout out to you, and God bless. Um, mm, quote, from darkness to light, end quote, $120 billion value from the U.S. to Ukraine, right? That's what we gave them. It's a loan. Our military hardware we send to Ukraine is made by Americans. So stop complaining about the war, because I'm guaranteeing you there's a lot of men and women that work in these massive, absolutely massive military industrial complex. What do they call them? Industrial plants, that are making these things that are just like, I want to keep my job. I'm getting paid very well. Just shut up. We're going to keep funding Ukraine because we're getting live recall. I mean, we're making all kinds of new stuff. Ukraine's making all kinds of new stuff. And guess what? It's actually, we don't have to test it on dummies and stuff. They're testing it on live Russians that are willingly just jumping in front of lead. So very little cash has been sent to Ukraine. Here's fun facts. In Trump's first term, he sent $120 billion. Mm-hmm. Don't believe me, Google it. That was before Russia invaded. Russia invaded Ukraine February 24th, 2022. Okay. Trump also had an agreement with Ukraine, the USA, the UE, or the EU, Russia, and other countries. And because we had Sleepy Joe Biden, and because Putin was so terrified that, Ukraine might join NATO, he had to put a stop to it, because a country cannot join NATO unless they have been peaceful for at least 10 years consecutively. Well, guess what? When Russia annexed Crimea in 2014, it wasn't considered a war. So they were free and clear to join NATO. And guess who? Just take a guess who it was that kept saying, Ukraine's going to join NATO. We need to convince Ukraine to join NATO. Cackling Kamala. That's who. You don't believe me? Look back at the videos. Fox even probably covered her saying it. She did. She was pushing Ukraine to join NATO. And inevitably, Putin was like, well, I'm not going to let that happen. I don't know why he trusted cackling Kamala to begin with, but Russia, here's another sad fact that should break the hearts of everybody watching. Russia has stolen between 50,000 and 100,000 children from Ukraine and have taken them into Russia. Why? Because the Russian population is decreasing, just like American population is decreasing. Why? Because we need more babies. Everybody's too worried about their damn TikTok. Video gaming. That's what they're worried about these days. And I hopefully watching me, I hope I'm wasting your lifetime too. So, at least you're getting some education out of it. So they took between 50,000 and 100,000 because it can't be verified, because the mothers, the parents, the mother, the father, and now the grandparents, the one that just took the one-way trip ticket, from 30 yards away. in front of the grandchildren, that grandmother, she no longer exists either. Also, Russia has been forcibly drafting Ukrainians in the areas that Russia has taken over, forcibly drafted them into the front lines. So most likely they're already unalived because Ukrainians are trained on a NATO standard. And NATO does not infringe upon international airspace there, Mr. Whatever his name is. They wanted to argue with me on one of my shorts in his comments. Okay. We don't. We don't fly right up to, China's international line and then just veer away for no reason. We don't do that. No NATO countries do that. Okay. We react. That's it. You attack us. An attack on one is an attack on all. That's it. We don't try to intimidate people, this, that, and another thing, like Putin's so worried, about Ukraine joining NATO. Why? Because had they have joined NATO, he never would have been able to do what he just did. Because as soon as he would have hit Ukraine, all of NATO would have been attacking Russia. Oh, so frustrating. The question is, does Ukraine have fraud happening? Yes. Mr. Nobody. Yeah, I'm Mr. Nobody. That's okay. Does Ukraine have fraud? Do you think Ukraine has fraud? I want you to think right now of one country that don't have fraud. Seriously. One country. Go ahead and name it for me. And please don't say America. For the love of the Lord. Of course, Ukraine has fraud. That's what everybody's banking on. They're like, oh, well, Ukrainians are fraudulent. Yeah. And you want to know what? Zelensky was put into office to expose that fraud. And guess what? He turned against one of his best friends and exposed his little atomic energy with the power plant, thing. Just Google it. You'll see what I'm talking about. It was one of Vladimir Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, best friend. Threw him under the bus. Why? Because he was corrupt. Not Zelensky. Right, America. Yeah, we're very fraudulent. Where's Fauci at? Jeez. So, here's the fun facts, and this is where I end on the whole Russia rant, okay? It took 100,000 troops. It took 100,000 Russian troops, mind you, with, scooters and stuff, because they don't have very many armored personnel carriers, APCs, okay, left. Russia's practically done. Their military is non-existent. When this war ends, they are going to look like China did before we gave them blueprints to the Apple phone. Okay? It's going to be very bad. That's why he don't want to stop the war. But it took 100,000 soldiers to take Pokrovsk. And they took it. And guess what? They held it for 3 days. 3. Look it up. And then the generals went back to Putin and we were like, oh, we got Pokrovsk. Guess what? Now those same generals that lost Pokrovsk 3 days later are terrified to go back to Putin. Why? Because they get a, piece of lead in their forehead like the old lady in front of her grandchildren would. Okay? Saying, oh, well, we need extra military hardware to take Pokrovsk again because the Ukrainians pushed us out. What do you mean? I can just hear Vladimir Putin right now. What do you say that one more time? Say it one more again. You said what? Right. They don't have the nerves, the balls, the steel, nothing to do it. To tell them the truth. So Vladimir's looking like, oh, this battlefield's going great. Because they don't want to be unalived. That's why. So if it took 100,000 soldiers to take across for 3 days, to take Zaporizhia would take about 7.6 million soldiers. Think about that. To take Zaporizhia. That's one city in Ukraine. It would take 7.6 million soldiers. Where is Russia coming up with those? They're not. And here's the fun fact there. Zelensky exposed the $100 million corruption nuclear scheme, and one guy was his personal friend. It's literally written right there. Zelensky was voted in to clean up corruption. And Russia is still threatening nukes daily. Okay. So now I need to go back to, sorry for the paper shuffling here, but I kind of changed some of my things. So the third thing is going to be the Trump administration, and it's basically on nursing, loans, and schooling. So something happened, and I caught the headline, and I was like, well, what does that mean? It had something to do with nursing, and obviously my fiance goes to nursing school right now. So I was like very curious. So it had to do with the Board of Education, but I'm going to get to the crux of it. So 138,000 plus nurses have left the workforce since 2022. 138,000 plus. For one reason or another. Either they were already in retirement age, they already planned to retire, they went into a different field, they didn't like it anymore, they were tired of being treated this way or that way, they were tired of being told you had to behave, they've got to watch what I say, the Corona beer, you have to drink a Corona beer once a year, in order to keep doing your job. But 40% of the current nurses, okay, in America right now, 40% of them intend on leaving by 2029. Think about that. Just think about the local hospital around you or something. You know, 40% of all national nurses leaving by 2029. And then you have, Sean talking about somebody in the deep state. I don't know whether I can't, because I can only talk facts. But Sean Ryan had somebody on his show that was talking about, and I know somebody's going to watch this and they're going to be like curious and they're going to go back to the Sean Ryan show, but was talking about the guy that was the undercover agent that said that everybody should leave America by 2030. Do y'all wonder why? I watched the episode. Spoiler alert. You might want to too. There's a good reason for it. But imagine 40% of the nurses and stuff that work at PCP offices, emergency hospitals, uh, all of them leaving by 2029. And the majority of them are actually retirement, but regardless. So Gen Z is expected to pick up the slack there. Well, we know where Gen Z's mind is at, and it ain't getting married, settling down, having a house, and having children. It's not that. It's got to be a TikTok star. I got to be like the Kardashians, because that's the American way of life. Rich, famous, and ungodly. They need 20,000 applicants ASAP. 20,000 nurses. You hear this guy? Needs to go to a shop, because my truck ain't even that loud. And that didn't even sound like power. That just sounded like a really bad fart can. Like those weed eater cords. but 80,000 are needed, and they're CRNAs, NPs, and NAs. Okay, and you can go to rnaction.com. Go to rnaction.com right now. Slide away from the video or minimize it, whatever. Go to your web browser. I hope you're using DuckDuckGo or something, not Google and not Apple or anything like that. Use an outside browser because everybody is taking your data. Just so you know, they're all taking your data. And no, that's not an ad, YouTube. It's a personal preference. But you can go to rnaction.com and you can sign the petition for the loan amounts on the nursing. Because basically what they're doing is effectively cutting a bunch of programs for nurses. So we're just not going to have any nurses in 2030, I guess. You know, there's going to be doctors that are like scalpel. Oh, I have to get it myself, I guess. What is going on? So now here's a fun part. Number 4 is going to be the world wonders and places. And I find this absolutely fascinating. And I hope you guys do too. And I hope this brings up your spirits a little bit because this stuff that I've been talking about is very down. And the last topic I have to talk about is very down. But I'm leaving that for the very end for a specific reason. Hold on 1 second. Okay. And so these are fascinating places of the world that I found. Okay. So the radiance lattice. They believe they're UFO, nanopod lights. There's the 7 wonders of Russia. And I put haha because, no American's ever going to see those. But there's, the 7 wonders of the world, like the Egyptian pyramids, the Incan, pyramids, so on and so forth. Whatever the 7 wonders of the world are right now, they change all the time, so it doesn't really matter. But Russia has their own 7 wonders of the world, and most of them were made by themselves. So I don't know why they're so wonders. They're not wonders. I mean, you drilled a natural gas line, you lit it on fire, and now it's this big hole that's nonstop burning. How's that a wonder? I know how you did it. It's not a wonder. I know how that happened. They know how it happened. It's not a wonder. A wonder is something you're like, how does this happen? And maybe a geologist can give you some kind of, true determination on why they happened and whatever. But it was, the 7 wonders of Russia were basically all Russian made, believe it or not. Then there's the Desert of Silence in Mexico. And that one I found absolutely fascinating because it's so weird. I watched this guy walking through this Desert of Silence in Mexico. And no, I'm not exactly sure where it's at, but it's somewhere in Mexico, obviously. And it's a desert. So I hope you take a lot of water. But this guy took his phone and he was with another guy recording. And he set his alarm clock like that he wakes up to. And you could barely hear it. But he had a microphone clipped right here. And he held the phone to it. And it went super, super loud. But whenever he went like this, there was like nothing. Like you could barely hear it. So he was like, told the cameraman, pull out your phone and do it. Whenever his alarm went off, 2 minutes later, you couldn't even hear it. And then he brought it up to his microphone and you could hear it. See, it's literally called the Desert of Silence in Mexico. Okay. So then you got the Crooked Forest, which I believe is in Norway or something, or the Netherlands, something like that. But basically the trees come up and then they're all curved like that and then they grow up, right? And some believe that it was UFOs, of course. Yeah, no, that conspiracy. But Other people believed that it was like a tank or something because these trees would have been growing around the time of like World War II. So they believe that maybe a tank rolled over the trees and that's why they were all bent and then started growing straight. But it's only a very little patch of forest. There's not much to look at. Nevada, the Fly Geyser in the United States of America. Hoorah. Used to be owned by a rancher because he was drilling for a well and he struck apparently it's not volcanic, but it's ultra heated water. It's mineral rich water, right? And oh, I don't even have my thing going here. I totally forgot. Hold on 1 second. There we go. That looks better. I'm gonna go back to my chat. I was wondering. I was like, oh, we're missing something there. So originally the rancher owned it, and then I was purchased by the Burning Man Project. Anybody ever heard of the Burning Man? They do it every year. You know, they go out in the desert and they wear all these weird clothes or lack of clothing. They ride around on pedal bikes and scooters and hoverboards and, all this wokeness. And they have these massive things that they make with lights and stuff. And then they have this big Burning Man made out of pallets and stuff. And they burn them down every year. What's that? Antiquarius U.S. campaign professional degree petition. There's the link right there for the nurses. Is this for the nurses?
Yeah.
Boom. There it is. So, there's that. Ain't it weird, though, that the Burning Man Project purchased that land that Fly Geyser is on? But the geyser is absolutely gorgeous. And it's this neutral, real natural, mineral rich water that comes out of the ground. And it's super hot. So you don't want to get near it. I mean, it ain't something you want to take a shower in. Trust me, your skin will melt off. But the geyser at different times of the day shows all different colors like greens, blues, reds, oranges, yellows. It's you gotta look it up. It's absolutely amazing. Then there's the dog self unaliving bridge, and that's in Scotland. And a little history about that is that there have been like 15 to 30 dogs that have just darted away from their owners, jumped off the edge, and that's dead. End of story. But they can't figure out why the dogs are doing it. And it's only dogs. So cats like Loki Boki here, right? Apparently don't do that. There's something that attracts the dogs when they hear it or something. I don't know. It's fascinating though. Not that dogs are being unalive there. I'm saying it's fascinating that there's something happening that they can't figure out why. And trust me, a lot of people have tried figuring it out. And then there's Blood Falls Glacier, which they originally believed, geologists and all that believed that it was red algae, but it come to find out that it was just iron-rich brine. Then you got the Plain of Jaws. That was they're estimated to be created 500 BCE. That was before Christ. Yeah, no. I wonder why it's BC, before Christ. Because he was an important figure. He's the most important figure in the history of the globe in humanity's perspective. And don't forget to do this. And don't forget to do this. Please. Because it really helps. It really does. But they're jars. They're big stone jars. But none of them have lids. Can't figure out why, but they believe that giants made them. There were actually giants on this earth, just so you know. They're called Nephilim, and they are spoke about in this Bible right here. And that's why God flooded the world. Yeah. And fun fact about the flood, not to get off topic and into a religious rant here, but every culture around the globe has a different variation of the flood and the story of the flood. The only true one is right here. See? But the Japanese, the Chinese, you name it, Buddhists, even the Muslims, check it. Even the Muslims is talked about in the Quran and the Sunnah. I know what I'm talking about, people. The catacombs of France. You ever hear the catacombs of France? It's roughly 6 million people. They were unalive due to plagues and so on and so forth. And the reason the catacombs were made were those were pre-made subterranean. Got another guy that needs to go visit the, they were subterranean tunnels that were made in under France. And they're not sure exactly why, but there is portions of the catacombs that you can publicly access and go into, and the government allows, and then some of it's shut off, and some of it people have secret accesses, and this, that, and another thing that, kind of like the dark web or something, it's like the dark web of the underbelly of France. But it's roughly 6 million people's bones. In the 1700s, it was created due to no area for graves. Plain and simple. They'd box them up, decomposition takes place, and then they took the bones down there. No names, no headstones, no nothing. So then there's Homestead, Florida. Homestead, Florida. And it's the Coral Castle. And what's tragic about this is it was an elderly man, I forget his name, but he made it for the love of his life he proposed to, and then she disappeared and he never knew what happened to her, but her name was Agnes Scuff. So he worked on this castle his entire life, lived in solitary by himself, and created this Coral Castle. Now, the Coral Castle, where it's at currently, was actually moved. But it was one man that made these blocks, and they're so heavy that cranes had a difficulty moving them. But one man was able to do it all by himself. So either he had some secret technology like the Egyptians or something was up. But that's what's fascinating about that. There's literally, I believe it's a 3-ton coral stone that you can spin with your finger. It's like whenever you go into a high rise or whatever, and it has the spinning door right at the entrance. It's a 3-ton stone that you can literally spin with your finger. Imagine that. And he made it with no tools, just hand tools. Just a chisel and a hammer and stuff. Like regular stuff. He didn't have any high technology or anything. The Skeleton Lake. This is one I want to visit. And it's in India. Rupkund. And they've done testing on some of those bones there. And it comes out they're not just from India. There's literally white people, there's Native Americans, there's Africans, there's people from all over the globe. And they don't know how these bones end up there. But there's only like 2 or 3 months out of the year that this little lake, falls out. And as far as down as you can see, it's just nothing but bones. But the water's crystal clear because it's all snow melt, right? That's why it's a lake. And then there's the Devil's Kettle in Minnesota. You got Eternal Flame Falls in New York. You could check that out. Okay. It's literally a waterfall with a lot of slate, and there's an eternal flame that sometimes people have to go in there and relight it with a lighter or a match or whatever, but it's just a little natural gas that's given off, but it's underwater. So, I mean, water and flame don't go together, do they? Unless I might check. But that's a pretty cool place, I thought. And then Luzon, the hanging coffins. And it's believed that they've been doing this ceremony for 2 millennia. And then there's Hellbridge, Germany. which you could Google that one and you'll see famous photos of Hell's Bridge. So, and it's over a lake. So when you're standing on the lake shore and the water's solid, you take a photo. It's literally a perfect circle. But this bridge is so fragile that you can't walk on it or anything. It would collapse, and that would be, you'd have to be stupid to want to do that. I don't know why they got to go Hell's Bridge, but whatever. Mamadol is the hexagonal stones, a ritual site in Micronesia, and they believe that the land is cursed. Which brings me to one of the last ones. Bangalore Fort in India is another one I want to visit because it's absolutely fascinating. The government enforces a curfew. Even the monkeys that normally are there, when the sun starts going down, the monkeys leave into the forest. Nobody knows why, but a lot of people have come up missing because they stayed after dark. Well, guess what I want to do? I want to just set up a little tent there in the middle and, just have a little camp out. That's what I want to do. But David probably figure out, well, 52 people went in and 51 came out. That means there's one in there. But even the Indian government officials that protect the area, if it's after dark, they leave. They literally go in there basically with a bullhorn and tell whoever's in there, whoever lurks within the darkness. Exactly. And then one thing I wanted to touch on was Joseph Medicine Crow. You should look him up. Absolutely fascinating man. His father was the last true uh, king of the Crow tribe, Native American tribe. But Joseph Medicine Crow was his name, and he was the leader of the Crow Nation at one point. And this man conquered fascinating feats in Vietnam and stuff. And it was World War II. It was World War II. And the Crow Nation believed that there were 5 specific things that they needed to do in order to be a true warrior. And he accomplished those. And one of those was taking a man's horse without killing the man. And he actually did that because the Germans in World War II, the Nazis, those guys with the little swastikas and stuff that just couldn't believe that America was so powerful, right? They used a lot of horses and donkeys and stuff in the background. A lot of people don't know that. They think it was all done by, Volkswagens or something. It wasn't. A lot of horse and donkeys were used in the backgrounds of World War II. So I talked about the Amish. All right. So then number 5 is a fill-in that I'm going to do here, and that is on the tree sightings. So here we go with this, because this is where I started the podcast, and this is absolutely fanatical. Like, what is going on? Can I sincerely ask when the last time you heard about a tree lighting ceremony having some catastrophic event? Not that I can remember. So why is it happening now? And then you have Mama Danny or whatever, meeting with Donald Trump in the White House, and they seem to be kind of buddy-buddy. I don't know what's going on there. I don't like it. Yeah, he is. He's a radical. He's a socialist. He's not a radical. He's just a socialist. Most socialists are radical. But Chicago Christmas tree lighting, there were 9 people shot, including 1 DOA. All victims ranged from the ages of 13 to 18. How about that? Mm-hmm. Suspect is a black male, 5'8", and ran on foot. Apparently, He's outstanding. North Carolina tree lighting. 4 persons shot. 3 out of the 4 are in critical condition. 3 out of 4 of whom are in the hospital are being charged for the shooting. So that must have meant that North Carolinians had their CWPs locked, loaded, ready to go. You know, they saw something happen and they were like, oh, no, no. Another suspect has been charged, but has no injuries. And then you got to worry because, you know, the big one is New York, right? It's a big ceremony every year. Times Square, lighting. So the devotional, oh, better not forget my banner here. Hold on. We got it. Ba-boom. So I'm going to take this off for now. And I'm going to put this one on. Oh, wait, I can't do that. And so my devotional tonight is a profound biblical devotion of celebration of Christ at Christmas. And it comes from Luke 2, verses 10 and 11, where the angel declares to the shepherds who were following the northern star, okay, quote, fear not, for behold, I bring you good news, of great joy that will be for all the people. All. I'll say it again. All the people. For unto you is born this day in the city of David a Savior, who is Christ the Lord. End quote. This passage powerfully captures the essence of Christmas. Now just hold on to that thought because we were like, wait a minute, Thanksgiving's coming. Yeah, it is. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to make our prayers and petitions be made known to God with prayer and thanksgiving. Okay. Thanksgiving is like an American holiday where we're grateful for family, friends, relatives, neighbors, you know, the kind of people. But originally it started with the Native Americans and the white men until the white men decided to, you know, just, oh, you could just go to your little reservation there. And you don't have a choice. But regardless, that the event is fundamentally good news that results in joy, a great joy for all people. Again, all. It directly identifies the infant in the manger as the Savior, and more importantly, Christ the Lord, Messiah, the anointing King, Ashua. How many Hebrews are watching? Ashua. Mm-hmm. Good news, great joy. This calls us to celebrate the birth not just as a historical event, but a personal source of hope and overwhelming joy because of what it means for us. A Savior. The title focuses on celebration of Jesus' ultimate purpose, salvation from sin. Amen to that. Because none of us are perfect. Nobody on earth is. This reminds people that the celebration is rooted in the eternal gift of life he offers. Christ the Lord, acknowledging him as Lord, calls for the response of worship as the shepherds and wise men did. Matthew chapter 2, verse 11. And submission, recognizing him as the King of Kings. And the birth of Christ still brings this good news and great joy into your life today, as it should tomorrow, prompting a response of worship and thanksgiving. See? And it was coming. It was coming. And thanksgiving. So that's why I read that one tonight. And then my last topic, unfortunately, is number 6. Likely end to RWTM-E32. Well, I'm going to read what I wrote the other day. And then I'll explain. Footnotes to the description, but I didn't put them in the description. I'm just going to read them to you. So if you've watched this long, 1 hour and 47 seconds, congratulations. I doubt that you will, but you'll be figuring it out later, I guess. I truly began the channel to spread the gospel. What we just did. No, I could take devotional time off because this is no longer devotional time. You know, it's just we're gonna go back to chat. Okay. I'll start over. I truly began the channel to spread the gospel, but with the news added in for variety. The majority of my videos are on info, news, politics, all hidden or suppressed by the government or or mainstream media. You know, like what's happening to the Christians in Nigeria. I called that out over a week ago. Fox News just picked it up yesterday. Glory be to God. It's not me. It's what I guess he's making fascinating to me. It's not on the news to bring to you. And that's why you should like and subscribe. I don't know why we're stuck at the ridiculous number we are, but whatever. I'm not sure why it was not successful, but I prayed and prayed. And I continue to pray and pray that people find and sub and to continue. The truth must and will always prevail. I pray your eyes, your hearts, and your souls are enlightened by Christ's grace. And all glory be to God. Amen and amen. So, I have been debating this for quite a while, and I had actually my eldest son and a couple other people, family members and stuff, said, don't stop the podcast. You know, well, I'm on episode 32, right? And I know it might seem like, I mean, I got a couple viewers here, so there's about 10 people watching right now. How many likes do I have? You know, I got 1.4 thousand, 1,400 people watched one of my shorts. It has like 5 likes and no new subscribers. So 1,400 people watched it, but nobody new subscribed. Why? How difficult is it to hit the subscribe button? You don't have to have the bell on. There's a reason that you need those numbers. My point is, I don't see that it is worth my time and effort to do this much research and double checking everything to make sure I'm giving you factual information. Okay. For 5 likes. Now, is that me being selfish? Maybe. But from what I'm gathering from the comments, there's like, 3, 4, maybe 5 people that actually even comment that what I'm doing helps them or that they enjoy it or whatever. I don't know whether it's just the fact that you're there and I'm here and, my old Spontaneous Ace channel was actually videos of me doing totally random stuff and then thrown together in a video. And I had like a little intro at the beginning, and and it wasn't just you staring at me the whole time and me talking. These are all live streams. And I could potentially, work on adding graphics and pulling up videos and showing you what's actually happening in Ukraine and this, that, and another thing, but it'd probably get banned. It'd get shadow banned by YouTube. They don't want that out. And that's part of my problem. I believe that I'm being shadow banned. It doesn't matter what hashtags I use. It doesn't matter how much I try to uh, encourage people to like it, to subscribe, and to watch it. Whenever I look at my stats, it tells me everything, just so you know. Even if you have your own VPN, it will tell me what country you're watching from. It will tell me whether you're male or female, because of your YouTube account, whatever you're signed up as. If you're a male with a female account, then, you're showing up as a female. But regardless, it shows me your age range. It shows me just the statistics. It doesn't show me your personal data. I don't have your email. I don't have your address. I don't have your phone number. I don't want any of that. But I did want to get to 500 subscribers to give out a phone number that so people could call into my podcast while I'm live like this, and we could talk about whatever they wanted to talk about, whether they wanted to curse me out or they thought they knew more than me. We could talk and debate it. That was the whole point of this. But the underlying whole value to it was to bring the word of God in every one of my videos. And there's all but one live that I did. And I realized after I did the live, I didn't do a devotional. And you can even ask my fiance. I was like, I can't believe I didn't do a devotional. It's something that I swore I would do. If you read all my descriptions, it's one thing that I do. In my last podcast live stream was literally a full devotional. It was nothing but biblical scriptures from Genesis to Revelation. And there was a reason. Because it's the single most important thing you ever do in your life. But I don't see the point in continuing when I only have it's showing 10 people watching right now. And I've been going for an hour and 7 minutes. Showing 10 people. Do I have 10 likes? I don't know. And then the other thing is I'm using Rumble rather than just doing like I used to do my old videos just on YouTube. But I'm going to weigh that out and we'll see what goes on from here. How long it takes this video to get to 40 views even. Because I feel like it's a lot of time for nothing. And nobody's commenting and saying, oh, I really appreciate at least, you're talking about Christ. Or is that really a factual number of Russian soldiers, unaliving, getting unalive daily on the front line? Yeah, that is. If you don't believe me, you can Google everything I say on every one of my videos. It's factual information. Now, some of it might be suppressed, but eventually Fox catch-ups, catch-ups. By the way, ketchup used to be called catsup, not ketchup. But that was because of the Germans also. So, But with all that being said, I thank you for tuning in to another episode of Real World Truth Matters, because the truth does matter. And so do the facts. And whether or not this is actually my last podcast, I don't know. I don't want to be like Adam Calhoun and be like, after I get, no, not at, who is it? I misspoke there. It's not Adam Calhoun, it's the other guy. But he's like, once he gets home from doing his last music tour, he's completely stopping YouTube and all social medias and this, that, and another thing. And it's weird because I still see him on there. But I don't know. We'll see what happens, I guess, with this video. So I would highly expect it, appreciate if you would share it with friends, family, anybody. And I hope that somebody gets value out of it, because it takes a lot of time to get the information. So with that being said, from my family to yours, I guess until next time, stay blessed.